Before I begin to white knight Celine by mansplaining how everything about Shoe's response video is wrong, there's a few things I want to mention. This is a response to Shoe's response to Celia's video, not the pressure to have clear skin is a feminist issue itself. But I do acknowledge that Celia says in her original video she'll give us top 5 reasons why the pressure to have clear skin is a feminist issue, and she names more like 9-ish separate problems, and she does never explain what the connections between them and feminism are, and that's okay. Failing to defend their position doesn't automatically make that position wrong, especially in what is just an inoffensive, unscripted, 10.5 minute long video in which some woman sitting in her bedroom in front of a camera describes various problems acne patients face, no pun intended, and her own experiences with the disease. There's not even a single edit in her video.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
And she made it for a website called Everyday Feminism.
This is another video I'm doing in a series with Everyday Feminism,
which publishes articles like 5 supposedly empowering things we need to stop telling people about their periods, 3 differences between the terms gay and queer and why it matters, 7 things I love about being bi. That is not all they write, obviously, but I wouldn't compare it to something like Nature.
Why does everything need to be connected to feminism? Why do they need a monopoly on everything?
They didn't come to Shoe's house and point at this video as the reason why they are taking away her skincare, is what I'm trying to say. Oh, and one more little thing.
I think this is a feminist issue that we should be talking about.
The connection between feminism and skincare.
The second reason that this is a feminist issue.
What is the connection between acne and feminism?
This is a feminist issue that is worth talking about.
The only thing I'm interested in is skincare and bunnies. You took one away from me, don't you dare take bunnies.
In this video I want to discuss the pressure to have clear skin and why that's a feminist issue.
This entire video was a lie. This entire video was pointless.
I suspect Shoe failed to distinguish the cause, which is acne, a skin disease, from the ways in which it affects people. Celia's video is obviously about the latter rather than the former. Honestly, I could just end the video right here, but what's the fun in that? Anyways, with all that waffling out of the way, let's explore how ignorance and lack of empathy may just be a bit more dangerous and pressing concerns than strawmen and windmills, shall we? So, the very first counter-argument in her video is a joke.
I've talked about my skin struggles in past videos quite a bit. It's something that has definitely plagued my self-esteem for a long time. It was the reason that I, resisted getting a high-definition camera for vlogging for so long.
Hey, what's wrong with filming on a potato? I'm gonna do it forever. I'm never going to stop.
And then she cuts to Ralph, the dog owner, being funny.
No one should put up with watching a video like this, unless the person making it is a moderately attractive, whiny 20-year-old female. Oh, no! I didn't mean that, it was a joke. She's not whiny, her videos are great.
I mean, admitting on record to liking Shoe's videos isn't the worst thing he said in one of his videos.
And one black woman named Ruth Nigga.
Ruth. I'm sure her parents love her very much, but this bitch can't act. I don't like watching movies with in them. Especially if they're Jennifer Garner has her best friend over. This cunt. That's her name, literally.
First season of Walking Dead had many flaws. These were all fixed in the second season, which I believe is the best season of the show.
My first reason is that there is a lack of representation of successful people, or really anyone other than, teenagers we're meant to feel sorry for, who have acne or skin issues in the media.
As you can see, Celia keeps looking at presumably some notes that she has in front of her. She says successful people, then she looks down at the notes again and clarifies that she's talking about the general lack of representation in the media.
I so desperately wanted and still want to see people who look like me with my skin problems in my favorite shows and movies, but they're simply not there.
Shoe ignores all that and attacks a strawman of one word that was just a slip of the tongue.
Rihanna, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, just to name a few A-listers, are very open with their acne struggles.
I wasn't able to find a single photo of any of these 4 female singers with any visible severe acne.
Like, I understand when it comes to race, I can understand that, but acne?
You know, there's a huge difference between, oh yeah, we have blacks in this galaxy, somewhere, just use your imagination, and here's African Americans. Unless Shu was talking about their movie roles, like...
Told you not to go in there! Let's go, bees! Let's get the hell out of here! She's fearless, and she's one of the boys.
If that is the case, I did see one picture where Miley had an image of a pimple behind her. I chased that lead better than nothing, and that turned out to be a screenshot from Hannah Montana. This episode, if anyone's curious.
Hannah Montana fans totally get that reference.
And I saw it. Well, okay, it wasn't that bad.
My charming assistant, the lovely Tina!
Oh no. Oh no, oh no, 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 no! What? No! Why? I'm just gonna let the footage speak for itself, I guess.
Daddy, put my face on that zit!
If Hannah Montana says even I get zits, she should have a zit.
We don't like it.
No, we do not, Daddy. We have got to get rid of that zit.
What happened? The looks don't matter.
Just like that. Why do you have a paintbrush?
You're my little girl. Why? What am I? Tina. My other little girl.
And then Hannah gives a short speech in which she says, listen, looks do matter, okay, but other stuff does too, I guess? I don't know, my zit wasn't even real, so...
So without anyone to look to in popular media, it's incredibly easy to feel alone in your problems.
Even Hannah Montana gets zits, and I'm okay with it.
Evidently, she's not.
Not always a good idea to try to relate to super rich and famous people.
Acne almost certainly causes embarrassment, stigma, shame, guilt, and low self-esteem, which are likely to cause psychological problems, claims this study. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, hopefully. Before I show the rest of the data, what will it have to show in order to prove Celia's assertion false? Well, if gender equality has truly been achieved,
labeling yourself as a feminist, stop it. It is not a movement anymore. You do not need it. Nobody needs it. You have every single right that every guy has now. I can walk, I can go get a job, I can walk.
If that is already the case, men and women should have the same experiences in every aspect of their lives. In this case, the lives of everyone who has acne would have to be impacted equally. Acne makes girls want to kill themselves more than it does boys. But hey, this is just one, probably cherry-pick. The differences between male and female scale scores suggest that the psychological impact of acne may be greater for women than it is for men. Girls are likely to experience greater psychological difficulties than boys. Clinical depression was present in 8.8% of acne patients. This was 3 to 4 times greater than the prevalence of depression in the general population. Twice as many females were reported to have depression than males. Women had significantly higher DAS scores than men in the areas of general self-consciousness of appearance, social self-consciousness, sexual and bodily self-consciousness, facial self-consciousness, and negative self-concept. Facial acne severity rating was significantly associated with social self-consciousness in women, but not in men. 26.6% were disturbed psychologically, at least to some extent. 19.3% 33% in males and 33.7% in females. 82.9% of the stress was related to physical appearance. Adolescent girls were more susceptible than boys to the negative psychological effects of acne. Acne and gender, independently and jointly, are associated with major depression and suicide. Special medical support should be warranted in females with acne for the risk of major depression and suicide. An important association between female gender and psychological distress was evident as compared to men, even when controlled for age. I could go on, or I will go on if I had enough time and money to read more studies. But Shoe0nHead doesn't have any financial or time constraints stifling her philosophy.
I do nothing. I sit at home, I do nothing. I talk to my boyfriend, like, I shitpost on the internet, I play with my bunny, I live with my parents still. That's my life.
She claims to be very passionate about skincare, and she attacked Celia because she didn't like her arguments. Listen, I get that people who are totally not on the right, wink wink, completely ignore the existence of the academic side of feminism and think that sociology and demography are a Muslim conspiracy to weaken the West by making it think it's not already perfect. But maybe science should be left to people who have knowledge in their field. In any field, really. You know, people like Celia Idzel, a strong media and communication professional, working toward a PhD focused in ethics and feminist philosophy. But wait, what are Shoe's credentials, you might be wondering? I mean, I've read some studies, that doesn't make me an expert. She's an ex-esthetician. I'm assuming Shoe put this in the description because she thinks that having this experience alone makes her some sort of an expert in the field, which it doesn't. As Plato wrote, Socrates thought to himself, "Neither of us really knows anything fine and good, but this man thinks he knows something when he does not, whereas I, as I do not know anything, do not think I do either. I seem then, in just this little thing."
But the more that I learn, the more I realize I know nothing.
Well, so what happens is as the area of your knowledge grows,
yeah,
so too does the perimeter of your ignorance. Because that's the boundary between what is known within the circle and what is unknown outside of it. So every new thing you learn, you stand in a new place and see things you never even knew you didn't know.
June does provide an explanation as to why you never see famous people with pimples on their faces.
A lot of famous people probably struggle with acne, but they can afford expensive makeup to cover up and expensive skincare to fix it. Now, you probably know me by now, but if you don't, I'm pretty much like a central, left-leaning moderate. And I'm a liberal shit, and I'm not a Trump supporter. But maybe this is the change we need. We're gonna see how it plays out. Calm down, it's gonna be okay, it's not gonna be as bad as you're making it out to be. I doubt he's gonna take away any rights for LGBT people. Like, gay Americans are still Americans, and Trump loves America. And to all you psycho lib shits that are planning to assassinate Trump or wishing that he gets assassinated, let me just remind you that the vice president thinks that electroshock therapy helps turn gay people straight.
Oh, we're so lucky we have Trump then. It's not like the vice president has any real power. Fucking hell.
We have very stupid people in our country negotiating for us, and we have leaders that don't know what they're doing.
Oh, and Pence never said that. There's more than one Wait, why am I defending Pence's dog whistle? I'm not rational enough. One more thing before I get back to whatever this video is supposed to be about.
My content will probably include more laughing at right-wing locales, depending on how things go.
In this video, she defends Trump supporters. A promotional video of her second channel, in which she laughs at a feminist something. Speaks for itself. Milo Yiannopoulos' defense.
Who thinks white nationalism is pointless and judging people by their skin color is stupid.
Don't fight identity politics with identity politics. White pride, white nationalism, white supremacy isn't the way to go. You should be aspiring to values and to ideas. You should be focusing on what unites people, not what drives them apart. And you shouldn't give a shit about skin color, you shouldn't give a shit about sexuality, you shouldn't give a shit about gender, and you should be deeply suspicious of the people who do.
The piece blows the lid off of the internal workings of Breitbart News. It's a meticulously researched story that has plenty of evidence in the form of emails and other internal documents to prove that Breitbart actively and intentionally worked to bring white nationalist ideas into the mainstream. Not a single thing in the BuzzFeed story should be a surprise to anyone. People did see the signs. Many people. I'd say the signs that white nationalism was deliberately being cultivated as a core component of the alt-right were pretty fucking obvious.
Throughout the screeds, Yiannopoulos uses vile language and slurs to refer to trans people, calling them
trannies, mutilated, gay men dressing up for attention, and obsessed with being victims. Trannies can never be women, or men, for the small slice of women insane enough to desire to give up female privilege. Gays should pipe down, and get back in the closet. No one would choose to have a gay child rather than a straight one. It would be like wishing that they were born disabled.
God, that was like playing a clip of Hitler himself.
I don't really get why someone whose best friend is trans would jump to the defense of a transphobe. But pick union and all that, right? Feminism, a Bill Nye saves the world response.
But then he was like, oh, biological sex is on a spectrum. I'm like, Bill, it's not!
June, it is. Pro-MRA, feminism, an apology video.
All my videos are comedy, all my videos are like, hurdy-durder, look at this dumb thing.
Just because a content creator positions their videos as comedy doesn't mean they get a free pass to be factually wrong, especially when they talk about sensitive and complex subject matters.
But I think I can have a more open mind when it comes to like stuff like this, especially when I don't understand it. I understand feminism, that's why I'm not a feminist.
I know she wasn't making a joke, but this is still pretty funny. Take a look at her wage gap video, for example.
The wage gap is simply the average earnings of men and women working full-time. It does not count for different job positions, hours worked, or different jobs. It has nothing to do with the same job. It has nothing to do with discrimination.
First of all, it does. It does have something to do with discrimination. Quite a lot, actually.
The thing is, the wage gap is not what they wish it was.
The raw pay gap can be adjusted to reveal the unexplained portion of the gap. And yes, there's still a gap, even controlling for the factors Shu mentioned. Simply stating that women, that hive mind that hates itself, apparently, tend to choose worse jobs doesn't explain why they tend to choose worse jobs.
It all comes down to personal choice. Dudes tend to take more higher paying jobs, while women tend to take more caretaking jobs and social science jobs, which tend to pay less.
We will force all women into STEM fields. Sorry, Sally, I know you wanted to be a school teacher, but the wage gap. None of you ever have solutions, you just talk about it. You just go, it's pretty bad, and there's never anything said after that.
The size of the gap differs considerably even from state to state within one country. Therefore, there exist external factors that affect women's simple choices. Therefore, the gap can be altered, ideally closed. Therefore, feminism. Speaking about states, when I was doing research for this video and saw this table, I noticed something curious about it. Can you see it? Let me give you a clue. If you guessed people who voted for a misogynist are more likely to be prejudiced against women themselves? Yeah. But let's say, just like Show0nHead, you strongly oppose gender equality, don't care about women not getting paid what they deserve and not getting jobs they should get, punishing women for merely possessing the ability to create life is fair, apparently. It's just like, how much more do we need to lose, huh? place composing music with working in STEM fields, and it's not like there aren't men out there still saying shit like, girls can't DJ? Mom, this girl wants to play with my mixer. Doesn't she have her own? Anyways, assuming you are one of them, why should bigots care? Forsyth et al. Estimated two models incorporating data for most countries in the world for the period from 1970 to 1992, using both the relative status of women and a gender equality measure of their own as a dependent variable. Their findings supported a positive correlation between the level of gender equality and the GDP level. Their conclusion was that in the long term there was a positive and significant correlation between gender equality and GDP. A study by Knowles et al. Showed that educational differences between the sexes adversely affect growth, while the level of education among women had a clearly favorable impact on labor productivity. Claassen found the same positive impact from women's education, and further noted that gender equality indirectly affects economic growth, in that it also affects investments and population growth in the country. Raising women's educational levels also impacted significantly on fertility and child mortality, and thus on life expectancy in the country concerned. Promoting gender equality and education and employment may be one of those few policies that have been termed win-win strategies. In an earlier study by Hill and King, the authors sought to explain GDP level per capita on the basis both of women's educational participation rates and of the gender education gap. Their findings showed not only that women's educational levels had a clearly positive effect on GDP, but also that large education gaps between the sexes affect GDP negatively. Differences in individuals' social and political involvement outside the home or family also affected growth, due to a range of factors, including corruption. Studies have shown that since women tend to be less corrupt than men, there is a considerable risk that institutions will function less effectively and that investments will be fewer as long as women are absent from the political arena. Summarizing and simplifying the findings of the empirical studies carried out hitherto, it could be said that to a greater or lesser extent all show that enhanced gender equality, realized by such means as increased female participation in education, in working life and in political life, and by the opening of more professions to women, interacts with the GDP level per capita. The correlation is twofold. Greater equality between women and men is a highly significant factor in pursuit of change in developing countries, while a higher GDP level may also result in social development towards enhanced gender equality in different areas. But nah, all these professional economists studying gender must be fools, just wasting their time studying a non-issue. They could just go to youtube.com and get all the answers to the questions they've been studying their entire lives from a fucking Vine. And finally, I would love to hear one of these privileged white devils argue that Hispanic and Latina women, Black and African American women, Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander women, American Indian and Alaska Native women simply tend to choose shittier jobs, which happen to be shittier jobs than the jobs that white women also simply tend to choose, which happen to be even shittier jobs than the jobs Asian American women also simply tend to choose. Wait. It's a stab in the dark, but let's see what is June's stance on the plight of black people in America.
One of the ways that racism shows up in these interactions is as a dismissal of people of color's reality. Miranda Fricker argues that by underrating the testimonies of others due to the wrongful stereotyping that is attached to them, that's committing an injustice. And it's a form of racial injustice that happens all the time.
Black people happen to get arrested and shot more. There's absolutely nothing racist about that. She replied to a question that contains a link to this infographic, which she either didn't bother to examine or she simply doesn't care. So she looks at all these problems, acknowledges their existence, and then she makes videos saying, nah, don't worry about it. Even though these are real issues that exist, I choose to shit on the movements that aim to make the world better. You know, things just happen for no reason, and even though I've spread easily disprovable misinformation numerous times, nonetheless, you should trust me. You should trust the judgment of Shoe, maybe this is the change we need on let's see how Trump's presidency plays out head. Because... have you seen my bunny? Isn't it cute?
I forget how much influence I have. I blew up.
This is not an excuse either. Man's or woman slaughter isn't the same crime as murder, but the result is the same, you know?
Right now I'm still stuck in, there's no scientific proof for it, so it's not a thing, but I'm not gonna be like, you ain't real.
No, genderqueer people don't have to prove to you that they exist, June.
Before the coming of foreigners to our islands, we Hawaiians lived in aloha, in harmony with the land and with one another. Every person had their role in society, whether male, female, or mahu. Those who embraced both the feminine and masculine traits that are embodied within each and every one of us. Mahu were valued and respected as caretakers, healers, and teachers of ancient traditions. When American missionaries arrived in the 1800s, they were shocked and infuriated by these practices and did everything they could to abolish them.
It is so fucking surreal how much in common these supposed progressive atheists have in common with religious fundamentalists.
You guys know I grew up with a trans person. He is my best friend. And I saw a lot of the shit he went through. And to me, like, Milo and Riley were just like, it's fun! It's fun to be trans! Woo! I can be a girl and then I can be a guy the next day! You know the whole thing. To me, calling out this was protecting trans people.
So, her best friend is transgender, and because she knows how tough trans people's lives are, this cis person appointed herself the judge of who is transgender and who is a transgender. And in case you're thinking, well, at least she is able to admit her own mistakes, isn't it a bit unfair to bring up something that she has since apologized for?
When it comes to, like, the gender stuff, I don't get it. Like, I feel like I'm a bad person for not giving it a chance. Back in the day when it was like super popular to be like, Milo Stewart and Riley Dennis are trenders, I totally got in on that, and like, I regret it, and I'm very sorry, and...
These videos are still up.
He is a trans man. Want to talk about that part?
Yeah, so I have some kind of credibility, I guess.
Disabilities come in a very wide range, from being deaf to being in a wheelchair to only having one arm, and I think it's pretty...
To thinking there's more than two genders.
Back when we were friends, it was before your transition, and you were my only girlfriend. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
And it just so happens you were always a male inside, no wonder we got along so well.
Kind of makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't it?
I don't want to read too much into this, but that's such a weird thing to say. It makes sense, I like you, because you didn't actually belong to a particular group. Especially when it's a woman talking about other women, you know?
It goes for lesbian women with penises. It's difficult because some queer...
Stop.
Wait.
I don't really even have anything to say, I just want you to stop.
I wonder why these two absolutely not transphobes or bullies reacted this way to lesbian women with penises. Especially Derek. Does he not know how being trans works?
Gay conversion therapy has been proven not to work, but you can unlearn your own prejudices.
Conversion therapy doesn't work, but you can unlearn.
I don't... Earth's flat, we're all gonna die. Like, I should just... Oh, well, you want to go on a date with me? I shouldn't say no because
Riley
reasons.
said so.
Riley said that's discriminatory.
I haven't got a brain. Only straw.
I said this on a stream the other day. He has like a child's view on men and women. Like, he's wearing a tie and then like hot pants, like a little kid. Like, look, I'm a boy and a girl. Like, ties.
Look at this 17-year-old kid uploading silly childish videos to YouTube. We are so much better than that.
I should just vlog like this. Hey guys! I noticed something. Fat chicks. So you might be wondering, June, why do you look like a faggot? And it is the most vicious little piece of poop. See what I did there? They like Tinkerbell. Why? Isn't she like a fairy? I was driving. That's driving, I'm not dicks. Alright, my New Year's resolution, my Wednesday resolution is to not curse in vlogs anymore and not do this. Oh, fuck. Life. I do not have a Tumblr. I just found this hat that I haven't found in...
These fucking trannies, trying to cope with the gender dysphoria, maybe start a conversation. You wanna cyberbully them? I don't know, Shu. I'm trans and you were there. You know how tough. Nah, don't worry about it. They are trans-stranders, which is totally a real thing, because I say it is. And look, this woman says in her video that every lesbian has to suck her feminine cock. And this guy dares to put on a tie. Suck his feminine... Wait, did you say a tie? Yes! Besides, what's the worst that can happen if I'm wrong? What, are they gonna kill themselves? And even videos that are so vile, even she realizes eventually how bad they are. She doesn't delete them. This one, for example, anyone who has a link, and we are on the internet, so anyone can still watch it. And for example, find a clip of June saying something horrible. Oh wait, that's literally the entire fucking video.
How do you identify?
I identify as female. Oh good, a fellow human. Quick, follow me into the bunker.
According to June, these people are not humans because they are not like her, and she doesn't understand them. Had she, realized how vicious the things that she said were, but then looked at the views and thought, well, I'm not that sorry. Assuming being sorry is the reason she enlisted it, for all I know, she just didn't want anyone to know how awful.
I don't care that they're bi, as if that has anything to do with anything. Carry on, carry on. Labels are all that matters to them.
The results of an audience poll she did, feminism, a BuzzFeed video in 2017, an attack on Anita Sarkeesian in 2017.
And she would get mad at, like, video game characters having boobs, and video game characters being hot, and video game characters' hips moving when they walk.
That is exactly what the Tropes vs. Women series is about. After that statement, how can anyone not want to hear what Shoe0nHead has to say on the subject of Islam? Oh boy.
Just really dumb, petty things like that. Usually, like, sex-negative feminism. So it was not really a surprise to see her, like, borderline defending Islam here.
Anita is not sex-negative, and what June described isn't really what sex-negative feminism focuses on. I think, based on the name, June assumed that it's about no sex, and that it would make sense for a sex-negative feminist to defend Islam, whereas in reality, sex-negative feminists have more reasons to be critical of Islam than the average feminist. And Anita's video isn't even about any of that. It's about the representation of Middle Easterners and Arabs and Muslims in the Western media. There's 3.5 million Muslims living in the US alone, but most Muslims you see in the media are terrorists, and that's a problem.
There's tremendous harm in centuries of images that reduce entire nations, cultures, and religions to the status of subhuman human savages.
I've seen my fair share of responses to Anita.
I swear the woman was made in a factory to be responded to on YouTube.
Most of them can be summarized as man babies being upset over girls getting cooties all over their toys. But at least they were able to comprehend what Anita was talking about.
Now, I haven't talked about Islam on this channel yet. This might be a good little, like, gateway drug into there, an Anita video, why not? For some left-leaning people on Twitter, their first reaction to hearing about an Islamic terror attack is not all Muslims, but it's definitely the only religion today that has just huge chunks of people that are absolutely radicalized by it.
Judging by the context, by radicalized Muslims, she means ISIS. You know, the organization that's been disavowed and condemned and outlawed everywhere and by everyone, including countries that support ISIS. The same ISIS whose members don't know shit about Islam and whose fighters comprise anywhere from 0.00022 to 0.00011% of all Muslims. How is this a huge chunk, exactly?
Even I stand with the Muslims. We know it's not all Muslims. If it was all Muslims, everyone would be dead. If all Muslims were terrorists, we'd all be dead. It's so pointless to be like, not all. Just like those good Muslims are only reading the good parts of the Quran, the bad Muslims are reading the bad parts. It's still coming from the same book.
It's almost as if the issue is more complex than the book did it. For the sake of the argument, let's ignore this and also assume that June's understanding of how Islam works is correct, which it's not, needless to say. She believes that most Muslims choose to read the good parts of the Quran, but a statistically small group of people within a larger population of all Middle Eastern Muslims, who are themselves a minority among all Muslims. That group of people, most of whom just happen to be brown, choose to read for apparently no historical or political or geographical or geological reasons, the bad parts of the Quran, and that is solely Islam's fault somehow.
They will not enter any part of the city without passing over our corpses, said Mesa Abdul, a YPG commander in Kobani. We saw it as a battle between humanity and barbarity, between freedom and tyranny.
Wait, let me fix this for you. Here you go.
There are people living here in the first world, in the West, who want Sharia law. There are feminists who want Sharia law.
Since June didn't bother to back up this fearmongering with a source, I decided to find one myself. The very first result is a Freedom Outpost article, and this Liberty Headlines page contains only an Alex Jones video.
Intersectional feminist movement was created by the Central Intelligence Agency and major Western foundations to not just annihilate the family and turn women into wards of the state, but it was also meant to fuse with radical Islam and any anti-freedom oppressive system.
You thought I was just joking, didn't you?
So I think I'm all done with that rant, so let's get on to the video.
From True Lies to American Sniper, from 24 to Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Oh, look at these movies and shows that have to do with modern war. Isn't it strange they're depicting modern war?
Total garbage. Let's have a look.
So how did Carl Benjamin become Sargon of Akkad?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by, what argument are you trying to make? That is fucking stupid.
Western media is full of images of evil brown people who need to be wiped from the earth by noble, righteous white men heroically fighting for freedom and justice.
Does Anita know that there's, like, black people and brown people and Asian people in the army as well? Or no, it's just heroic white people in the army.
Anita wasn't talking about real life, nor does she say the words army anywhere in her video. She was talking— you can see her examples in June's video. What the fuck? Did Thunderfoot ghostwrite the script? I feel like she heard Anita say white man, and she didn't, like—
It seems like Skeptic heard Prashanth say
hey, white people, and then he like turned his brain off and didn't see this bit?
Yeah, like that. Must be a hereditary thing.
Was that guy even Islamic? Was he Muslim? Or we don't know. He was just a desert guy. He was a bad desert guy.
Really, what are the odds of this guy being a Muslim? He's probably just one of those desert men.
I feel like if you're gonna criticize something, you gotta know a lot about it, or else you look like a big dumbass.
Unfortunately, we can't hop in Doc Brown's DeLorean and undo all the harmful representations of Muslims, Arabs, and Middle Easterners that—
Unfortunately, I can't hop in the DeLorean and warn everybody on the morning of 9/11 to not go in the buildings either.
Wait, I'm confused. At the beginning of the video, we knew that hashtag not all Muslims, but now she says that 9/11 happened. But the number of hate crimes does spike after every terror attack. The innocent majority gets punished for the actions of the radical minority. If we don't blame all Muslims, but also don't like hashtag not all Muslims, I have to conclude June doesn't want hate crimes against innocent Muslims to stop. And speaking about innocent brown people, what about Arab-looking people who are not Muslims? What about innocent Sikhs who get assaulted and killed because they look like hashtag not all Muslims?
Well, let's be real. Nobody who spreads the hate of Islam is talking about white ladies. Western media has contributed to a level of ignorance so great that for many people it has resulted in equating Islam with scary brown people, particularly scary brown men from the Middle East. It's been so effective that most of you probably didn't even know that this man isn't Muslim, he's Sikh.
You know who else didn't know that? Fucking Cosmopolitan.com. After the Manchester bombing, a Sikh taxi cab driver was giving out free rides, and Cosmopolitan was like, "Oh my god, can we use your picture? Please."
Oh, did I cover June talking about a silly mistake Cosmopolitan made with this list of hate crimes against Sikhs who were mistaken for Muslims? I'm sorry, let me get this out of the way. So what were you saying Cosmopolitan did, June?
And they fucking posted that he was a Muslim taxi driver, just so they can virtue signal how not all Muslims look. This Muslim guy is giving out free taxi rides. The virtue. And he was Sikh. So super embarrassing.
Have you ever noticed how in Disney's Aladdin, the good guy might as well be a tanned American surfer dude, but the bad guys look and sound a little more, Arab?
Did you touch my Disney? Did you just touch my Disney? I swear to God, I'm about to go Allahu Akbar on this bitch.
I'm so angry someone insulted my cynical businessman whom I pay for whitewashed, regurgitated, safe versions of better stories intended to make little children wanna buy toys. What is this? Feels over reels?
And Aladdin does look Arab. They made him look Arab. Look at what he's wearing, first of all. And Arabs can be lighter skinned, Anita. I love how Anita's basically like, Aladdin's too hot. He doesn't look Arab. But this ugly ass motherfucker over here, he looks Arab.
You can be white, black, brown, and still be Arab.
So what was that shit about Aladdin, Anita? You're saying Aladdin is too white looking to be Arab, and all of a sudden you're like, you can be white and still be Arab.
Aladdin is set in the past, in one city, not in the current year and all over the world.
If Islam isn't a race, then how can Islamophobia be racism? The answer lies in another ism, one many Westerners aren't particularly familiar with. That's Orientalism.
Why can't I hold all these isms?
We've done a lot of research on this, and as it turns out, words actually have meanings. Weird, right?
First of all, you can, June. Look, there's only one ism, two isms. Second, I have a better question. Why can't June be bothered to read a wiki article? In her book, Deepa Kumar has argued that formation of Islamophobic discourses has paralleled the development of other forms of racial bigotry. Closely associated with civilizational theories is the notion that a people can be understood through its language and key texts. Philologists like Sassy advocated the notion that the study of a society's written texts could yield insight insights into the timeless essence of a civilization. Orientalists would therefore learn Arabic, Persian and Turkish and translate and analyze the texts of the East, rather than examine the historical context of Muslim societies. Philologists simply pursued textual analysis. It is no wonder then that despite the tremendous amount of accurate information and precise documentation which the specialists were able to assemble, the rift between their intellectual efforts and the world of objective reality continued to widen. It followed from this that Islam, as defined by its classical texts, was the key lens through which Muslim-majority societies could be understood. If women were oppressed, it was because of the teachings of the Quran. If Muslims supposedly lacked an entrepreneurial spirit, it was due to Islamic tradition. If modernization was rejected, again, the Quran was to blame. In short, a whole host of characteristics associated with the West but allegedly absent from the Muslim world could be explained by recourse to religious texts and the mentalities they supposedly created.
Still coming from the same book.
Similarly, John Denham has drawn parallels between modern Islamophobia and the anti-Semitism of the 1930s.
A view rooted in the idea of Western culture as inherently more advanced and enlightened.
Western culture is more advanced, Anita. Other cultures can be beautiful in different ways, but Western culture definitely is more advanced.
There's nothing racist about promoting a racist rhetoric. I genuinely can't understand why people call me a racist when I say racist shit.
I'm just tired of criticizing Islam and Islamic terrorism and them being called racist. Besides, of course, like Japan, and they're way ahead of us. The waifu age is upon us, friends.
Does June think the word culture means like the current ideas or something? I mean, she was talking about the present, yes, but why?
For hundreds of years, Western artistic and academic history has perpetuated an ignorant and prejudiced view of the East.
This whole segment is about the past. It is impossible to unintentionally misinterpret what Anita is saying here.
While many male Muslim actors in Hollywood can only find work playing bit parts as evil terrorists, Muslim women are often erased altogether.
That's terrible that the media is just erasing Muslim women. Just covering them up, you know? It's terrible. Who would do that? Treating them like second-class citizens. I bet the media is like not gonna let them drive or something.
So the thing is, you can interpret this clip in two ways. June was either being critical of her own government.
Women being treated like fucking animals in Saudi Arabia? That's oppression.
That sells guns to the regime responsible for the inequalities she mentioned. The same government that has overthrown a number of democratically elected leaders and replaced them with puppets who were willing to cooperate. The government that has allied itself with and financed Islamists. Or she meant Islam.
يعني شو إنسانة كي سري مجي يشتمج بإسلامية باكن تكبير الله أكبر أما تشتكي جو جبوي اشتغلت تكبير الله أكبر لكن يعني بخاصة أزبج من أم منظرات ببني النعس يعني بيرختن هناك جي قلشنا خرابات داستوادنا وتنهم بري تتنج بشربكن.
You see, it's not about their skin color or anything like that. It's just June has determined the root cause behind all these problems. And it's Islam, that terrible, inherently backward and misogynistic religion. Thinking of those poor women being oppressed by it makes me want to just invade their country. You know what, after this fucking clip I'm gonna need to keep away from sarcasm for a while. Let's just, I don't know, take a look at how prosperity isn't possible in a Muslim majority society and how much more inferior those brown I mean, Islam's... I'm not a racist. The Greeks invented geometry. Indian mathematicians came up with the brilliant idea of treating zero as a number. The Babylonians discovered the idea of place value. And the Muslims systemized all of these ideas, adding a few of their own to invent algebra and indeed to lay the foundation of modern mathematics. Thinkers like Ibn Sina achieved a near-modern understanding of illness and medical treatments, as well as of anatomy. The circulation of blood was known to them, them, as was the function of the hearts and of most other major organs. The Muslim world soon boasted the best hospitals the world had ever seen or was to see for centuries to come. Baghdad alone had some 100 of these facilities. In Omar's day, education was compulsory for both boys and girls in the Muslim community. Women worked alongside men, they took part in public life, they attended lectures, delivered sermons, composed poetry for public orations, went to war as relief workers, and sometimes even took part in fighting. Important decisions facing the community were discussed in public meetings. Omar participated in those meetings as just another citizen of the community, and women as well as men engaged him fearlessly in debates. In fact, Omar appointed a woman as head of the market in Medina, which was a position of great civic responsibility. Sargon led his armies so far south they were able to wash their weapons in the sea. There he said, "Now, any king who wants to call himself my equal, wherever I went, let him go." His empire was smaller than New Jersey. No Muslim could be a slave. If a man impregnated a slave, he had to marry her, which meant that her child will be born a Muslim and therefore free. Slavery could not result in breaking up a family, which limited a master's options. He could only buy or sell whole families. These Abbasid-era Muslim philosophers also laid the foundation of chemistry as a discipline and wrote treatises on geology, optics, botany, and virtually all the fields of study now known as science.
It's like every other religion, it's easy to just... wrong!
Imagine what religious people think of atheists and atheism after seeing videos like Islamophobia is racism. Atheists who never grow out of the "all religion is wrong" stage when they spew dangerously reductionist and scornful statements like that one, who instead of trying to talk to people, they say that they are phobic of them. Atheists who lack a basic understanding of history are the real threat to the cause, not the strawman of atheism plus that regressives hate so much. June said it herself. She understands why representation, at least when it comes to race, is important. But when someone makes that exact point in an educational video, when Anita says, "Hey, maybe we should stop demonizing Middle Easterners in our media and stop treating and viewing them the way we always have," June's response to that is, "While I stand with the Muslims, why are we talking about the majority of them when there's some terrorists out there? That's why I'm an Islamophobe, not because I'm a racist or anything like that. It looks like you are, especially when that is all you've got to say. Unlike, for example, these people who try to solve the issues racists use to disguise their true agenda."
Was railing and ranting about Muslim women, and do you know what your husband can do to you under your religion? And I said, actually, I'm not married. And I loved confusing him because we had 6 women standing behind him, holding signs up saying peace, love, and tolerance, and he was pretending to care about me?
Which is what Anita says in this clip, that most regressives that attacked her video misconstrued.
It's amazing how suddenly everyone's a feminist when it lets them perpetuate hate against brown people or dismiss concerns about how women are oppressed in their own culture.
Or maybe it's because we actually see that there's legitimate oppression happening in these Islamic countries, while there's none here. Catcalling is an oppression.
Okay, just because A is more oppressed than B, that doesn't mean that B is not oppressed. That's an invalid inference. It's usually not an either-or situation. In this case, you can focus on both, and that's evidently what feminists are doing. If you cared about women in Yemen and China, which you so obviously don't, you might be aware of the Yemeni Women's Union and the All China Women's Federation. But you don't care about them, do you? You're just using them in order to derail a conversation about women in the First World. By the way, there are very high levels of street harassment in Yemen as there are in the First World as well. So the notion that it's just a trivial First World problem and that you ought to focus on the women in Yemen instead is ridiculous. Secondly, why are you trying to trivialize this? This is a serious problem. A lot of women don't feel safe in public because of this. For many people, this problem dictates how they dress and where they go. Many people don't feel safe to go out at night because of this. So please, don't try to fucking trivialize this problem.
The wage gap has been debunked 1,000 times.
I refer you to the answer I gave earlier.
The pink tax is so easy to explain, a 5-year-old could do it.
Then why did Shu fail so hard when she tried to explain it?
All religions are bad, Anita. All of them.
Oh wait, they are? Wait! Yeah, Islam is a religion. By the goddess, all we need now is a really big megaphone, so let's all 1.8 billion When it comes to Islam, and all religions really, there simply are no easy answers, except for the ones offered by racists. But I reckon talking down to Anita Sarkeesian on the internet, as if she's the one who is absolutely clueless about these problems, isn't helping anyone except June herself.
So if you guys want to support me, you can go ahead and donate to my Patreon. And I haven't gotten into Islam because I don't know enough about it, and I feel like if you're gonna criticize something, you gotta know a lot about it.
Especially when you take into account the impact her videos make in countries like Pakistan, Egypt, Morocco, Bangladesh, Iran, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and other Muslim-majority countries where women do need feminism. Oh, but hey, all these civilized white people whose culture is so superior to ours say on the interwebs that all feminists are mentally ill. Oh, this literal cult sounds terrible. I will never sign up for it. Or what about the fact that one of the main reasons people join ISIS is because they don't feel like they are welcome in their own country, like they are surrounded by people who are phobic of them.
Racist assholes will always exist, Anita.
This is the difference between Anita and June. The former recognizes the problem, looks into its roots, describes its effects, and offers ways to solve it. The latter is too angry at the former to even hear what she's saying, and will have none of that let's fix problems shit, which is one of the main reasons why racist assholes still exist.
One of these religions will refuse to bake you a cake, and the other will throw you off of a roof.
She literally just said that Islam will Ironically, the video June made to big-explain to liberals why she doesn't like hashtag not all Muslims is a perfect demonstration of why the left feels the need to keep saying that it's not all Muslims, yo. A VidCon vlog, feminism, a childhood trauma video. I'm sure in like 10 years a lot of 20-somethings will talk about videos like these in their childhood trauma videos, if you know what I mean. This is a... Wait, what's... That's almost as funny as this unironic image Greg made unironically. Anyways, this is a half a Sargon long setup for this hilarious zinger.
Why is feminism so retarded?
You see, Donald Trump is there, and they refer to him as patriarchy.
It looked like the patriarchy.
But he's actually kyriarchy.
The kyriarchy. Why is feminism so retarded?
She says she's funny, okay? She's not...
Why is feminism so retarded?
She's not a leafy. Her boy man is not a leafy either.
Why is feminism so retarded?
And he...
Why is feminism so retarded?
He wears a hat that says he's a skeptic.
Why is feminism so retarded?
He's a skeptic.
And in the other corner, we have our favorite meme since 2016, Nazi punching. Oh, and when they say Nazis, they don't mean Nazis. They mean everyone to the right of here. That's not even hyperbolic, like, I was called a Nazi. Me.
Even June got called a Nazi? Wow, what could possibly give those paranoid communists this idea? Reading sarcastic... Oh, I'm not recording this.
Like my beats fast and my bass down.
This is from a video in which June mentions the murder of Heather Heyer by an actual Nazi on US soil. Or, as June put it,
some innocent-ass woman died because an edgy manlet was so butthurt that her opinion was different than his.
And then proceeds to ask,
what is wrong with happy white kids?
Over and over again.
How deep in the Kool-Aid do you have to be to see a picture of a white kid and automatically assume white nationalism?
For the rest of the video.
Ah yes, white supremacy is everywhere, even in pictures of little white kids. Haha, thank you for reminding us. And now
why some people thought this tweet was a bit insensitive?
Here's a fun game to play. What do you guys see when you see this picture? If you saw white nationalism, log off the internet, take a break, have a snack, lay down, and breathe in some carbon monoxide.
Perhaps just slightly inconsiderate? Maybe? She even mentions the fact that I seal you
cucked tweet. When your Twitter followers keep you in check and remind you that white supremacy is everywhere.
And she still made this video.
I just love how none of these people like see this very obvious message.
Either June is unable to put two and two together, or...
Personally, my favorite will always be milk. Milk being a white supremacist symbol. We are living in a parody.
I'm not calling her a Nazi sympathizer. That would be a ridiculous accusation.
Worried about my friends and frenemies getting killed for their opinions.
We can be certain her frenemies are progressives, which means her friends are Nazis. Case closed. What's next?
As much as you hear anti-feminists talk about how reason and logic should rule these conversations on YouTube, hardly any of these videos exist, and they certainly aren't the most popular ones.
Yes, they do exist, and yes, a lot of them are popular. And I am not one of them. If you come to me for intellect, you have come to the wrong place. Every single week I get at least one message from a kid in high school or college saying, "Oh, thank God I found your videos. All my teachers and my classmates and blah 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 blah, they're all full of this feminism stuff and I thought I was going crazy." They're thanking me for speaking up about this stuff.
While Katz is a free woman who can do whatever the fuck she wants with her channel, did she really think she'd get anything other than, "No, it's you. My side is the good side. You people are the ones doing bad things. See, someone sells t-shirts with the word feminist."
So it's crucial that we not confuse buying things for the actual practice of feminism. Visibility is vital for the movement, and we should loudly and proudly declare our participation in it. But it has to go beyond wearing a t-shirt. It has to be connected to a real feminist ethic.
On them. In response to her video, it is difficult to get a woman to understand something when her salary depends upon her not understanding it. She uploaded a new video 4 hours ago. Judging by the title, it's her second "Street Harassment is Not an Issue" video. If it is that, then...
I refer you to the answer I gave earlier.
Here's a visual representation of all that. Two bar charts, in fact. The one at the bottom represents every single video on her channel. So let me get this straight. Despite self-identifying as a... what? Totally not an alt-righter, okay? She calls liberals R-words.
I want to see liberals stop being so retarded.
Thereby offending approximately 1 to 3% of this planet's population. She hates black people who dare to fight for their lives. Hates quote-unquote Islam, reads extreme right-wing websites, white knights alt-right turds, called Trump the change we maybe need. Harasses trans and non-binary people online, harasses feminists online, doesn't want women to be equal to men, cares about white straight cis men more than about groups that actually are oppressed, more on that later, almost exclusively defends the right and attacks the left. What the oh, she was probably just shitposting. I think. Thank Gaia, knowing that whenever she uses racist, homophobic, and ableist slurs, she's probably just shitposting, makes it totally fine. And she has the audacity to claim that she is a progressive, moderate, liberal, whatever, while taking money for doing all that.
My content will probably include more laughing at right-wing locales, depending on how things go.
I have a question. When should we expect her to drop the other shoe and finally come out as a classical liberal? You know what they say, if the shoe fits, wear it. On your head. Almost an hour ago. Okay. This woman, whose name I've already forgotten, to be honest. What was it? Aliena? Said that she finds the way the media depicts acne problematic in general. Not just in one very specific case.
In those cases, I think it's actually meant to represent the awkward hormonal stages of being a kid and a teenager.
According to National Institute of Skin Diseases and some other irrelevant things, 80% of all people between the ages of 11 and 30 have acne outbreaks at some point. That's a pretty high percentage, isn't it? So how well does the media represent 80% of all people? The first study on this subject that I found was this one. Again, no idea why June didn't read it. You'd think she would find and purchase and read what seems like a very comprehensive study on the subject that directly pertains to what the video she's responding.
I already knew a lot about this, so I didn't cite anything.
Oh.
Sometimes when I find something, I ask followers who are also interested in politics and might know more than me. Is this true?
Oh.
وقت شاندaki perverde çoğu dibijin bu her zindagi perverde وقت مسلك ki tedikun kareki يعني نظام هر إنسان هيك.
The second study, which is free, admittedly did not cast its net wide, but
Rihanna, Katy Perry, Britney.
it'll do. Surprisingly, given its banality, acne is not depicted in film as commonly as one might think. Similar to some cartoons, film characters also may use derogatory sobriquets when referring to their peers with acne. While the depiction in this movie is different than prototypic single pimple plots, the idea of negatively characterizing people by their skin condition remains the same. The unnamed hotel employee is both young and inexperienced, and his acne adds to the notion that he may be a student, working a part-time job who clearly doesn't know what he's doing. The filmmaker is able to convey a backstory for this transitional character without devoting dialogue by simply portraying him with severe acne and making him appear both flustered and blundering in his appearance. A similar strategy that is sometimes used in film is a flashback to a character's youth in which they are depicted with acne, signifying that the character was once much less mature and experienced. Cartoons almost always depict acne in protagonists, while films often portray the condition in antagonists. This occurs because cartoons are trying to teach a relatable lesson to younger viewers, while films rarely use acne to send a thematic message. In film, acne usually serves as a visual reminder of a villain's negative qualities. In almost every example of acne in cartoons and films, it is depicted in a negative light. Whether it is a cartoon character getting extremely upset about the discovery of a single pimple and avoiding peers, or a movie villain's evil behavior being associated with acne, there is usually a negative association. If a cartoon shows acne in a negative light, viewers may begin to treat those with acne in a disparaging fashion. No negative consequences occur to characters who belittle acne sufferers in any of the cartoons presented, so teens may conclude that it is acceptable social behavior. While several of the episodes end with positive messages that reassure viewers that acne is an expected occurrence in life that is usually temporary, this information is only presented briefly near the end of the show when everything is resolved. The vast majority of these cartoons depicts the angst and ignominy of the acne characters, and although the writers may want their final message to be a positive one, the audience may still focus on the negative portrayals that dominate the plots. Thus, it is easy to imagine how these depictions can add to the stigmatization of such a common skin disease.
It's meant to be relatable for the audience. Everything has to cater to me! Like, I have ADHD and there's no characters or celebrities for me to look up to who are open and honest about their ADHD. I mean, I guess I have...
Besides being factually wrong about this, June uses the words triggered, retard and autist as insults. She herself is part of the problem, and therefore doesn't get to complain about media representation of mental illness. Anyways, back to reading studies in a monotone. Teens with acne were perceived most often by adults and other teens as being shy, introverted, lonely, nerdy, stressed, unhealthy, unkempt, boring and rebellious, compared to their counterparts with clear skin. When the perception data from teenagers was subdivided by gender, a higher proportion of female teens with clear skin were perceived as being intelligent, happy, trustworthy, healthy and creative by more survey respondents than females with or males with or without acne. A higher percentage of male teenagers with clear skin were thought to be self-confident, fun, cool, athletic, popular and outspoken than other teens. Conversely, girls with acne acne were perceived as being shy, stressed, lonely, boring, and introverted by more survey respondents than their colleagues. Many of the negative psychological effects on those individuals who are afflicted by acne relates to a diminished perception of attractiveness. A teen's social life can be negatively affected by acne. 1 in 5 have avoided social situations to keep blemishes a secret. Gender differences relating to these social pressures around acne and appearance have been reported in the literature. Girls were found to have higher levels of emotional and social impairments due to their acne.
Is that the norms surrounding skincare lead people to believe that people with acne are, unclean or don't wash their face or don't care about their appearance or something like that.
Well, then those people are stupid. Everyone can get acne. Everyone's skin is different. And acne is usually genetic. Sometimes it's not genetic.
Ignorance of others, caused in part by the media, as we've just learned, contributes to the development of real, tangible psychological effects in people with problematic skin. And while June has told her audience that BLM are black supremacists for fighting for their lives, that feminists are mentally ill because a woman used a word, that racism is okay as long as you call it something else. But on the positive side, from this moment on, 900,000 less people have been contributing to that after hearing such excellent advice as...
There are links to food in skin though, that is certain, and I know I've educated you fools before on skincare, but drinking water is very, very important. Also, change your pillowcases.
I actually looked into it, and apparently pillowcases are a feminist issue.
You were sleeping on months and years of dead skin cells, bacteria, oils, saliva. I swear to God, if anything was gonna make me a feminist, it's this shit. Men are fucking gross.
You know what? That bit, it makes a ton of sense actually, because unlike facts and logic, research, skepticism, on Shu's side, gross men are simply inescapable. Oh, and Celia does dispel that myth in a segment June didn't include in her video.
Acne is not actually a result of being dirty or lazy. In my experience, people with persistent acne or skin problems are among the most diligent and clean people because we know how sensitive our skin is, so we take incredibly good care of it.
What she did put into it is a story about how before discovering the career of being not like the other girl, a light socio-political commentator, light is the reach of a Oh Gaia, she thinks this quote is applicable to her channel. She used to work in the skincare field.
Please stop giving me suggestions every time I walk into a store that sells any kind of skincare product. It gets very tiring and demeaning to be constantly reminded that that's what everyone sees first when you meet them, or that everyone thinks you're lazy or incompetent just by the fact that they see pimples on your face. So please stop doing that.
I worked in the skincare field for 3 years, and when you walk into our store, we're supposed to hound you with suggestions so you buy things. And most of the time, we work on commission, so gotta get them shekels.
Oh, I get what you're saying. It's so silly of Celia to complain about professional estheticians like June.
I got a new job, and it's permanent at the makeup counter called Benefit.
Hounding her. Benefit is a global brand. We do approach customers. However, we certainly wouldn't want to hound customers. We pride ourselves on being friendly, open, and approachable, but also on having an understanding of each individual customer and their needs, with professional advice about her appearance. Wait a second, didn't I say that there are no edits in Celia's video? There's not even a single edit in her video. I did. Then what was that? Let's take a look at the full clip.
Please stop giving me suggestions every time I walk into a store that sells any kind of skincare product. I'm aware the cell phones are dirty and have bacteria on them. I do actually wash my face. Yes, that is a thing I do. It gets very tiring and demeaning to be constantly reminded.
Oh. What June said there is she knew she was making people like Celia feel worse about themselves, and she didn't give a shit because she got paid for doing that, in shekels. How exactly, in her mind, having a selfish reason to act shitty justifies the shitty acts and its consequences?
A lot of classism tied to this idea that all acne is caused by what you eat. So if you didn't eat sugar or junk food or dairy or meat or gluten, your skin would be so much clearer. First of all, not all of us have the resources and money to afford a specialized diet like that. So stop telling people what to eat and what not to eat, as if that's going to cure everything. It's classist, and it's simply insensitive to assume that you know better than them.
Classist. That's classist. Whatever happened to just being rude? Why is there an ist on everything? Racist, sexist, homophobist. Fuck.
We've done a lot of research on this, and as it turns out, words actually have meanings. Weird, right?
Skincare is tied to professionalism, a social construct that tells us that we need to look and act professionally in order to succeed in our society. Coupled with norms and stigma about acne and skin problems, professionalism leads to work environments that reinforce existing social hierarchies. When working class people can't afford the ridiculous expense of skincare products, which may or may not even work, when middle class people have already spent ridiculous amounts of money on skincare to no avail, they are either pushed to try more, spend more, use risky drugs, no matter the risk, or they are left to remain uncomfortable and in many ways ostracized from the beauty norms, which are obviously tied to self-confidence. Those who don't feel beautiful according to societal norms might have a harder time feeling good about themselves in general, and low self-confidence makes it harder to go after what you want. Thus, social hierarchies place the rich and the beautiful according to specific norms at the top of the food chain. This isn't a quote from a book or a study or an article, these are Celia's words. It's a coherent, easy to understand, truthful statement. Professionalism dictates that people need to look this way, poor people can't afford to do so, it negatively impacts their self-confidence, and they end up on this spiral-shaped social roads leading downwards. None of this is quantum physics, right? So how did June, a professional harasser,
Back to totally poning this feminist bro,
who had to disagree with the statement, do that?
The third reason is that skincare is sadly tied to professionalism. And professionalism is a social construct that tells us that we need to look or act professionally in order to succeed in our society.
Everything is a social construct. Living in a house is a social construct. Wearing clothes is a social construct. Pooping on the toilet is a social construct. Using the internet is a social construct. Feminism is a social construct. It's such a moot and random point to point out that professionalism is a social construct.
What do all those random social constructions that June listed have to do with professionalism? The social construction whose negative aspects and connection to acne Celia is trying to explain? How is that a moot and random point, in June's opinion, to give a definition of the thing you are talking about?
You say it like it's a negative thing, like we should just show up for a job interview in our sweatpants and sweatshirts.
Why not? Real life isn't New Vegas. The reason why different types of dress have an effect on performance are the social constructions we assign to all that meaningless fabric. And there's no reason for them to be there. And Celia wasn't talking about interviews exclusively.
And not pluck our eyebrows, not shave our legs, not do our hair, and just expect to be hired. And if we're not hired, that's classist.
Judging by her tone, June finds the idea of women not being ashamed of their bodies and not treating them like they are inherently broken extremely preposterous. And she seems to think there's nothing wrong with employers and societies being allowed to continue to set beauty standards for and impose them on women, and that women who disagree with all that should expect to get mistreated. You see, June doesn't mind conforming to gender norms, and it doesn't matter to her what other women might want or think, or that the status quo is demonstrably imbalanced and unfair. She's good. She hasn't, how did she put it, felt the patriarchy?
I've never felt the patriarchy. The patriarchy.
A feminist makeup tutorial. I have made a terrible mistake.
Oh, get it, because that's what the average feminist looks like.
If I wanted to use literally just a bar of soap, nobody is telling me I can't. There are no guards at the freaking supermarket, just looking at women like, I see you're buying a bar of soap. You're not planning to use that all over your body. That's it every day.
But wait, if there isn't a law that says that women have to shave their legs or wear makeup, but June admits that it is crucial to do both if you want to get hired, by that logic, aren't MRAs just whiners as well? Women tend to be better at parenting than men. Show me a law that says men have to be more suicidal than women. Male victims of domestic abuse simply choose to not seek help. Like, I have a compendium that says males comprised 77% of suspected family violence offenders, and most of the people who were convicted were male, under age 40, and white. Isn't June, and I quote, being like a wage gap here by, oh wait, they're not black, or brown, or female, or genderqueer. Oh, this must be a real and systemic problem. When it comes to men, June will just believe anything.
Feminist, do not want you to see this movie. The double standards about domestic abuse is something I care a lot about. You know, I've talked about it on this channel, but they go into so much detail about this. It's overwhelming.
1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will be victims of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime.
Naturally, I went and checked what the report actually says. 32.9% of women and 28.2% of men in the United States have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. First of all, why did they choose to present these numbers as 1 in 3 and 1 in 4? 28.2% is more than 1 in 4, and 32.9% is less than 1 in 3. Wouldn't it have made more sense to show the actual numbers instead of these approximations that make the abuse gap look smaller and scarier to people like June? Oh, yeah, 3 and 4 it's almost the same number, I get it. Unless, and there's a good chance of that being the case, the only part of this study that they read was the too long didn't read section. The first few pages, where the numbers 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 are mentioned explicitly. Because just a few pages below the page that has these tables, the report goes into so much actual detail. MRAs don't want you to see this data. Approximately 1 in 6 women and 1 in 37 men have been slammed against something by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Approximately 1 in 9 women and 1 in 38 men have been beaten by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Approximately 1 in 10 women and 1 in 100 men have been violently choked by an intimate partner in their lifetime.
1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will be victims of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Sure, there's a slight majority of female victims.
But who cares about the reels when June's got the feels, eh?
I cried 3 times. Skeptic's shirt was just full of mascara and eyeliner. I also love how she interviewed the meme, the myth, the legend, Big Red.
Don't even start with that whole...
Oh, look, it's the feminism. Men can be victims of domestic abuse, obviously, but because of the traditional gender norms enforced by the patriarchy, an unjust social system that enforces gender roles and is oppressive to both men and women, men aren't expected to seek help, don't seek help, and don't get taken seriously when they do. The problem is that, unlike feminism, the MRA movement doesn't have an academic branch, neither understands the concepts of nor actually does anything to combat patriarchy. And most of its members are regressives who do hate women, like Mike Cernovich, an alt-writer who pledged $10,000 to the Red Pill and thinks that
the hotter the sex, the more closely it resembles rape. A whore will let her friend ruin your life with a false rape case. So why should I care when women are raped? Fat/ugly women seek out dominant men to abuse them. Then they seek sympathy from others. Masturbation and porn are tools of cultural Marxists. Not being a slut is the only proven way to avoid AIDS. If you love black women, slut shame them. A woman over 40 is indistinguishable from a tranny. She got HIV while sharing dirty needles with tranny hookers. Typical Trump hater.
even the name I'm not sure whoever named this movement has seen The Matrix, to be honest. The entire film is a metaphor for being trans, and the red pill in this scene is the reality pill. The blue pill is the continue living in an imaginary world pill. Wouldn't it have made more sense? Oh, they think... Oh...
When working class people can't afford the ridiculous expense of skincare products, which may or may not even work, and when middle class people have already spent ridiculous amounts of money on skincare to no avail, we are either pushed to try more, spend more, use risky drugs, which I've done, no matter the risk, or we're left, to remain uncomfortable and in many ways ostracized from the beauty norms.
Before I show June's response to this, keep in mind that she called 21 million people losing their insurance a change that we maybe need, okay?
That's the unfortunate reality of the situation and life in general. If you can't afford expensive things to fix your face, you can't afford expensive things to fix your face.
So this reinforces the social hierarchies which places the rich and the beautiful according to specific norms at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, that's how the world operates. Attractive privilege.
To answer the question I posed earlier, if your target makes too much sense, but you have to make them look like a mentally ill person who's coming to steal your skincare, don't let them talk. Beauty privilege is an actual thing that unfairly impairs lives of real people. June does acknowledge that it is a thing, and says nothing else except for this cringy remark.
Attractive privilege. Not a social construct, surprisingly.
So how bad is it? According to a national poll by the Employment Law Alliance in 2005, 16% of workers reported being victims of appearance discrimination, a figure comparable to the percentage who in other surveys say they have experienced sex or race discrimination. This is a quote from an article entitled "Why Looks Are the Last Bastion of Discrimination." June should probably add lookism to the arbitrary list of words that enrage her.
None of this is oppressive. Lots of women just like to feel pretty, like to feel hygienic, like to feel well put together. It makes us feel good. And lots of women do it to look pretty for other people. And what is bad about that?
Another cost of our cultural preoccupation with appearance is discrimination. Appearance skews judgments about competence. Resumes and essays get less favorable evaluations when they are thought to belong to less attractive individuals. Overweight individuals are seen as having less effective work habits and ability to get along with others. Less attractive teachers get less favorable course evaluations from students. Less attractive students receive lower ratings in intelligence from teachers.
Is the whole women don't get hurt at the office thing a real thing, or is it one of those legalized vagina? Cause we're running out of ideas and things to complain about, so we're just gonna pull shit out of our ass.
Less attractive individuals are generally less likely to be hired and promoted and earn lower salaries. Women who decline to wear makeup do not appear to be healthy, heterosexual, or credible. 60% of overweight women report experiences of employment discrimination. One study of women in Congress between ages 46 and 74 found that over 90% had no visible gray hair. About 90% of cosmetic surgery patients are female. A meta-analysis that aggregated findings of over 100 studies found that, although less attractive individuals are perceived as less competent, the actual correlation between physical appearance and intellectual competence is virtually zero. And according to this study, the shock of having acne is positively associated with overall grade points average in high school and the completion of a college degree. The associations are stronger for women and whites than for men and blacks. We also find some evidence that acne is associated with higher personal labor market earnings for women. Literature shows that among adult cases of acne, women are affected more frequently than men. Approximately 12 to 22% of United States women suffer from adult acne compared to 3% of men. Despite the higher prevalence of adult female acne, there is limited research investigating the epidemiology, clinical presentation, and symptom burden of this skin disease in adult women. What does this remind remind me of, oh wait, biases and systemic issues don't exist. Anyone with half a brain and a hat that says skeptic trademark will tell you that. This table essentially says that acne had a negative effect on the participants' perception of appearance, social functioning, and overall emotional state. Some of these women had changed jobs or their job function because of their acne, some had missed going to work or school, 43.4% had difficulty concentrating at work or school, and 28.7% reported that acne had interfered with work or school. Studies have described levels of social and emotional problems in acne patients, comparable to patients with severe chronic disabling diseases, such as arthritis, epilepsy, and psoriasis. Something that I hadn't heard of before reading that study was the women are affected more frequently than men part, but how much more often? Of 1,013 participants aged 20 years and older, 73.3% reported ever having acne. Acne continues to be a common skin problem past the teenage years, with women being affected at higher rates than men in all age groups 20 years or older.
In this video, I want to discuss the pressure to have clear skin and why that's a feminist issue.
So, despite this,
but men can't even cover their acne with makeup.
Acne affects women more than men psychologically. More women suffer from acne than men, women have less money to spend on skincare, and a woman's appearance is a more highly valued asset in today's society than a man's appearance. And according to this source, guys have different reproductive organs, so they don't have a period and therefore can't get pregnant. Some guys may actually feel that this is unfair. The transphobia. Is this where Milo Yiannopoulos works now? Menstruation is an acne-affecting biological factor that primarily women get affected by. Like pregnancy.
What is the connection between acne and feminism? Acne and feminism. Keep watching this video.
Maybe try getting information from sources other than alt-right websites, MRA documentaries, random people on Twitter, and YouTube videos by other skeptical freethinkers.
Second of all, that rape stat is just another overly inflated boogeyman used to scare women. 1 in 4? That stat comes from an old study that counted consensual drunk sex as rape.
I think it's fair to say at this point that people like June or Skeptic Trademark have gone full anti-science. June thinks that a culture can be better than other cultures. She didn't question 2 scary numbers she saw in an MRA propaganda film, and when an actual scientist, Bill Nye, told her that scientists have done more research and realized that biologically sex is a spectrum, instead of going, huh, I mean, I've heard of intersex people, but spectrum? That's interesting, I'm gonna look into it because that's what I talk about on my channel. No, her first instinct was to screech that.
It's not! Keep trying to find the connection between acne and feminism. Acne and feminism keep saying she's trying to make her point. There is no point. What do I find out? What do I find out? There is no connection between acne and feminism. This entire video is a lie. This entire video is pointless.
Well, you could have mentioned that there might be a link between smoking and acne, and obviously smoking impairs the skin regeneration rate, which is an acne-related thing. But that's just a few examples of how you could have made your video less pointless. Oh wait, she meant Celia's video, she was making a joke reading sarcastic oh, not again.
But there's this huge stigma of men wearing makeup, and I'm surprised you didn't bring that up in your video. I feel like that's kind of feministy. I don't see anything wrong with men covering up their acne if they're insecure about it. It's not fair women get to go around covering it up and men just have it out in the open.
But you did. I feel like that's kind of feministy. In fact, that's not kind of feministy, that is a feminist position. Though I'm not sure why exactly June was waiting for Celia to bring this up, just because an issue affects everyone.
That should just be feminism on the internet in general. Just take a shot every time like some first world problem also affects the other sex.
That doesn't mean it's not a gendered issue, and June doesn't show any data to prove that it isn't, because she doesn't have any, because I mean, Celia dyes her hair. She's gotta be wrong about everything, right?
Even my own doctor minimized my pleas for help with my skin for a long time. Constantly I would go to her and she would say, well, it's not that bad. Like, let's wait and see, or, this might just pass. Years of that, and what you might see for 15 minutes every few months. I have to see every morning when I wake up and all day long, unless I literally avoid mirrors, which I have done because my skin has made me feel that bad.
Girl, those eyes, those fucking eyes. People would kill for your eyes. Why are you worrying about your skin when you have such nice eyes? Everyone is insecure about something. Everyone.
People would not kill for her eyes if they came with her skin, because she had acne, which is what her video is about. Both the adults and teenagers were more likely to first notice the skin of teens with acne. In contrast, when shown images of teens with clear skin, a variety of physical features were noticed first, i.e., shape of mouth, eye color, nose.
Everyone. Why does everything need to be connected?
What about her fifth point? There are 5 parts in the original video. The last one is where she talks about all the things that would be a bit harder to just ignorantly make fun of.
Is that many studies have shown that acne and depression can feed into each other. Acne itself raises the risk of depression and suicide attempt, and this is likely due to the weight that we as a society are putting on appearance and how linked our appearance is to our self-esteem. So this is why we need to change the way that we're talking about acne and clear skin.
I wonder why June decided to not include any of it. And really, why not? Celia had left herself vulnerable to an attack by opening up about her struggle with acne. Why not continue to kick her while she's down?
You're screwed if you open up on the internet and you are vulnerable, because it opens you up to criticism that hurts even deeper and allows people to judge you on your weaknesses or your honest thoughts, which is, hurts a lot more than being judged on, just sort of like a persona that you put out there that isn't really you. Resisted getting a high definition camera for vlogging for so long because I just didn't want you all to see how bad my skin really was. I recently finished a course of Accutane, which is a powerful and risky prescription drug that changes your oil production.
June apparently thought this bit also wasn't important enough to include in her response, but Celia's acne was so severe she had to take Accutane. Now, the reason this is important is if you've only seen June's response video, you'd have no idea that...
and that was a last attempt to, fix my skin. And it worked. I mean, I won't really know if it fully worked until like 8 months after I'm done and I just finished. But I'm thankful that it has made my skin clear, at least right now.
Because June strategically left this bit out of her response, there's a lot of comments under her video saying that Celia's skin looks clear to them. But I think it would be unfair to criticize all these misinformed mouth breathers for not making the effort to find Celia's video and not watching it for themselves. So let's see what mouth breathers who did make the effort to find Celia's video, and I'm assuming watched it, right, had to say about it. You have clear skin and have absolutely no noticeable acne. Your skin is fine. Stop bitching and moaning. Your skin is fine. Also, there is nothing wrong with it.
Clear.
This girl
but
in
you
the
have
video
clear
has
skin.
no
I
obvious
wish
my skin was as clear as yours. You have such clear skin. I think that you see what makes me most angry. You're actually pretty. Your skin looks really good. These people didn't make it past the first minute, and let's be real, not even the first second of Celia's video. But maybe someone had some intelligent counter-arguments. This is actual bullshit. I made a YouTube account just so I could dislike this video. Acne is a medical condition. You are not oppressed over acne. Shut up. Great going. More dislikes than likes. Antarctica has higher temperatures than your IQ. Your hair is green. I'd fix that before worrying about your skin. LMAO. I watched this video on Mio. Why don't feminists have any brains at all? Is the acme on your ass or something? Put on a burqa. She probably thinks that's super feminist. Lol. I'm done. I'm not watching further, even if you do correct what you have said later. Put on a burqa, P. Everyone's skin is different. That's a microaggression surely triggered. Do you have pimples on your butt? It'll help you. Oh. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Okay, what about at least original counter-arguments? What about men with acne? Guy and girls suffer from breakouts. Guys are under equal pressure to have clear skin. Men get acne as much as women do. Men are just as pressured to have clear skin as women are. Men have anky as
So
well.
boys never have this problem
acne
and
and
worry
are looked
about
down
it.
on.
If you
It's
really
a
care
male
about
right.
your
Guys
skincare
are
as a
praised,
psychological
care about
have
their
to
skin.
have
You know
to,
that
because
young
guys
men
don't get
struggle with
acne.
as well.
Acne
I
is
say
out of
men
your
with
rights.
acne.
I was a boy,
Men
don't
don't suffer
suffer
from
from
so, you know men get acne as well. Okay, original counter-arguments that are not this whiny, but what about men rubbish.
Or maybe it's because we actually see that there's legitimate oppression happening in these Islamic countries, while there's none here. Girl, those eyes, those fucking eyes, people would kill for your eyes. Why are you worrying about your skin? It's a social construct. You say it like it's a negative thing.
Oh, they just parrot whatever nonsense June tells them to believe in. P.S. You just got wrecked by Shoe. Well, I'm glad you spent your time making this 10.5-minute video. Shoe0nHead roasted your ass. Lol. Citations needed. You haven't given us a single reason why it's related to feminism. Can you show evidence with any of this information? June also didn't have any evidence, you ass-licking dunces. Oh. June left I still don't see a clear connection between skincare and feminism, or why acne, which is already an issue, has to be a feminist issue. It just seems like another grab at feminism, having a monopoly on something irrelevant to gender issues. It's quite random. Your skin looks really clear now, but even if it wasn't, you still have a pretty face and nice eyes. Your skin is probably the last thing people look at. Everyone has something they are insecure about. Also, why is everyone being so fucking mean in the comments? She didn't say anything batshit insane.
You can share your insecurities and your vulnerabilities, but you can also leave them out, and a lot of people do. And it's understandable why people would leave them out, because the internet is a really scary place, and it has a lot of mean people on it who hide behind anonymity, or just, you know, even if they show themselves, they don't really have to face the consequences of what they say or do, like they might have to do if they said it to you in real life.
This comment is a blatant, shameless attempt to damage control the situation. Unless you are a very naive person, I suppose. In which case, yeah, June had no idea that on YouTube, attacking someone who runs a small feminist channel usually leads to them getting dogpiled. Instead of apologizing and taking the responsibility for all this, she chose to play dumb. And why even bother with making half-hearted apology videos and acting all surprised when after watching your videos, your fans, who come to you to watch feminists get pwned, they go to the feminist channels and pwn them. The comments here are so much better than the video. Valid critiques. Listen to me, you cunts. What a self-absorbed, self-centered, entitled, retarded cunt you are. You don't even have visible acne in this video, you stupid cunt. Please get cancer, you half-baked whore. It's shit like this that make me hate women. You stupid. This is the most moronic, stupidest, dumbest excuse. Shame on you, you poor excuse for a human being. Privileged, spastic white supremacist, racist, cuntbag misogynist. This is stupid. Truly disgusting. You are weak, very weak person. You have no right to live the life you do. In fact, I think you should just die. That way you don't pollute the human race with your weakness. Grow the fuck up, or just kill yourself. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Go fuck yourself and your fucking first world problem, bitch. I have nothing but the deepest contempt for people like you. Are you autistic? Fuck you. Put a bag over your head, crater face. You are an idiot. Why are all feminists so fugly? Commies like this one deserves a bullet.
Holy fucking shit, you need to be put down. Whatever you say creates a face. Hey fucktard, shit happens, you dumb cunt. You're an ugly cunt and you're trying to find excuses. Ignorant, hypersensitive twat. Holy fuck, you're one of the most stupid idiots on the face of the planet. A bunch of whining little cunts. You're an idiot. Everything is oppressive to you, victims. Feminism equals cancer. Feminists are cancerous.
I've been harassed and threatened every day for going on 3 years with no end in sight. I rarely feel comfortable speaking spontaneously in public spaces. I'm intentional and careful about the media interviews I do. I decline most invitations to be on podcasts or web shows. I carefully consider the wording of every tweet to make sure it is clear and can't be misconstrued. Over the last several years, I've become hyper-vigilant. My life, my words, and my actions are placed under a magnifying glass. Every day I see my words scrutinized, twisted, and distorted by thousands of men hell-bent on destroying and silencing me. What I couldn't say is I'm a human being. I don't get to publicly express sadness or rage or exhaustion or anxiety or depression. I can't say that sometimes the harassment really gets to me, or conversely, that the harassment has become so normal that sometimes I don't feel anything at all. The death threats come through on my social media and it's just become a routine. Screen cap, forward to the FBI, block, and move on.
I used to watch June's videos. Back then I didn't know anything, I hadn't read anything, obviously, and I didn't take any of it seriously. To me it was just triggered virtue signaling SJWs, which I would argue is an inevitable and in most cases intentional side effect of her and most other regressives' videos. They target mouth breathers, which they may Chris Water pistol or may not be themselves, with distorted portrayals of what they perceive to be the enemy. This person is loud and irrational, this person has a million genders, this person wants Sharia law, whatever it takes really to make them believe they should direct their outrage and hatred at the groups those people supposedly embody. I never got sucked deeper into that reactionary cesspool than the surface level populated by footwear like Shoe. Even then, watching one video by Sargon was enough for me to realize I should stay away from that. However, this perceived harmlessness and friendliness of people like June is the reason why I think they are way more dangerous than someone like BPS or PJW. People who consciously subscribe to them after listening to what they've got to say
by allowing women to fuck freely
are practically beyond saving. But June, you can watch her videos and still believe that you are a decent person without ever noticing that you are getting your anger high from consuming gateway drugs into channels like Lauren Southern, a transphobic racist who half-heartedly hides that fact behind weak and nonsensical cultural and economic arguments, or Karlov Sargonova Cards, who, for example, makes jokes about a woman's death to her friend's face. Delete us. Get it? Oh, and here's an actual Nazi Richard Spencer calling both of them and Mila Yiannopoulos great entry points. Here's another transgender friend she has, Blair White, who insists that being trans is a mental illness, which it factually is not, and that's... And Blair has been interviewed by both Shouty Men.
Blair White, thanks for coming on. I mean, you've heard my comments on this. I saw your video and, thought it was, thought-provoking because, I mean, this is inside the whole debate. It seems like these people are bullies trying to order everyone to just do exactly what they say. But even if you submit every week, they're updating the new thing you must do. But even if you do that, you can't help the fact because you're, I guess, white, you're inherently evil.
Absolutely.
And his sidekick Cryboy.
Millions of Americans are now not even interested in police brutality or addressing it as an issue because of its association with this colossally stupid, violent and divisive Black Lives Matter movement. Now,
who apparently reads and recommends his viewers to visit the blog of an actual self-confessed rapist. Oh, and don't forget her boyfriend who...
Why is feminism so retarded?
Listen, this is going to sound excessively hostile since this video isn't about him. But even back when I thought that June was... I don't know what else, I wasn't thinking, okay? But even then I thought Greg was a complete buffoon. I'm a skeptic, just like most skeptics that inhabit the YouTube septa chamber is not a skeptic. He literally has no idea what postmodernism is. Imagine a chef who takes a look at this picture and says, "What are all these weird colorful shapes? What? No, I don't think I should know that. Can't you see I'm wearing my chef hat?" But all this might sound far-fetched and unlikely to happen. How do you go from June to BJW, for example? The way I did. June introduced me to Blair, and Blair gave an interview to BJW, during which he made some really awful transphobic jokes that Blair didn't seem to mind, for some reason. While I didn't really subscribe to him, more like bookmarked his channel to check it out later, and I did unsubscribe after watching just one of his videos. How many people don't know any better and keep watching?
Yeah, no, that was the gateway for me. I started watching Shoe0nHead, but now I don't despise of her or anything, but now I just sort of look at her and I'm like, it's not extreme enough for me.
So, unlike June, who doesn't understand feminism, I understand anti-feminism. I understand regressivism and the regressive mentality as a whole. And it is all just venomous, ignorant, dangerous, bullshit, all of it. Thankfully, I grew out of it relatively quickly and never acted upon any of that bullshit. Nevertheless, looking back on that period of my life makes me sick. I can't begin to describe how sorry and angry I am for having been such a huge fucking brainless plonker. I don't know how old I sound, but I'm actually younger than June. I've had less time to live and to learn, and I have other excuses like having grown up in a xenophobic, militant, homophobic, essentially fascist state, just like Zuko. The homophobia part is canon, by the way, and even he was able to redeem himself in the end. What I cannot figure out is what environmental excuses a female, bisexual, liberal, well, white liberal, but still, who lives in New York, has trans and black friends and progressive parents, which, and, oh, scratch the last thing, has to explain her running one of the biggest regressive channels on YouTube for several years, getting paid for harassing and defaming people online, and wittingly talking about things she knows nothing about in front of 1 million people or two. June positions herself as a haha look at this dumb thing channel.
A vegan, feminist, and an atheist walk into a bar. How do you know this? They all told you. Ah! Oh fuck! They don't splatter like in the cartoons! Oh!
Probably because she herself is well aware she's not capable of being something more than that, which would be fine if this self-assigned label did actually match the contents. The problem is that it doesn't. Her videos do affect a lot of people. A lot of people view her as an authority on these issues. And June does know that. And she doesn't respond to messages from people thanking her for indoctrinating them into her cult with, "Oh no, I'm a comedy channel. Did you really change your opinion on something after watching my videos? What are you, fucking retard?" She does have a lot of influence and a huge platform. Sharing her opinions is her job. And with great power comes great and continuous responsibility. I know she doesn't support Trump anymore, or so she says on Twitter and Ask. In fact, she claims she never did, and that she liked Bernie. But how would I know that from just watching her videos? Almost a year after saying something as unbelievably misguided as "maybe this is the change we need," she quietly unlisted that video just like she always does after realizing that once again she said something bad. And it doesn't matter. What matters is June having told a dangerous lie to a million people or two and doing almost nothing afterwards to remedy the consequences of her saying that to her viewers. I reckon because she's also well aware of who pays her and what they want to hear Shu say.
All of my fans watching this right now, you will fucking love this movie.
June spreads regressive propaganda. She goes to conventions to promote regressivism. She enjoys being taken seriously. And as soon as someone points out this discrepancy to her, she can always fall back on, "Oh no, I'm just a low-hanging fruit commentary channel." It doesn't work this way. If you don't want the responsibility that comes with this position on your head, quit. You don't get to just pretend like you don't have it. I started this video off by mentioning the alarming lack of empathy on June's side, and I do feel tempted to believe everything she says in the apology video and other excuses she has, because I don't know her personally and I don't know her circumstances. The only June I know is Shoe0nHead, what June herself chooses to present to the public. That persona is without a doubt a useful fool for the alt-right, whose role is that of a bridge that leads liberals, centrists, unaffiliated people and children to the alt-light. I think a majority of the boilerplate rubbish she calls her opinions are more like knee-jerk reactions to say whatever is the opposite of what progressives believe in. And because of that, and also of how utterly unqualified she is to discuss even one of the only two things she herself claims to be passionate about.
The only thing I'm interested in is skincare and bunnies. It's like, no, I want to debate, like I want to be involved with conversation.
Not to mention bigger and more complex issues. Her channel has developed into a perfect stepping stone to becoming an alt-right mini-head. When she implied that non-binary people are fake, she did it in a way that made it look like saying that isn't technically bigoted. She makes it seem rational to distrust scientists as long as you feel like they have an agenda. She suggested that platforming a Nazi bigot is a good idea, but not because she supports his ideas, of course. She supported Trump, but not too much, not enough to scare normies off. She hates Islam because... just look around you, isn't it obvious what a threat people who follow that religion are? She constantly reduces real issues that affect people to just memes on the internet, subsequently chipping away at her audience's perception of reality and convincing them that they are surrounded by mentally ill people tilting at windmills. Oh, and she uses Nazi dog whistles, like the Western culture.
But Western culture definitely is more advanced.
And milk.
Modern fascists have taken to using almost arbitrary emoji as a way to wink and nod at each other, notably the frog after Pepe, the milk, and the OK sign. And of course, another advantage of using innocuous symbols is that when leftists try to point those symbols out, the fascists can always say, "These gullible SJWs now think that even
milk being a white supremacist symbol."
But nah, someone like June must have just never heard these words used this way. To be fair, and to give her the benefit of the doubt, June is not a Nazi. Her activity probably helps Nazis more than anyone else, but she herself is not one. That's a positive, right? She is friendly with a few progressives who, for whatever reason, think that it's okay to be friends with someone who represents everything you are supposed to stand against, and thinks that everything you stand for is retarded and autistic. She agrees with progressives on some positions, things like gay marriage should be legal, and trans people exist, and other similar opinions that can no longer be used as evidence of you not being a garbage human being. June is sometimes nice to some people. There is something that people actually say in her defense. Okay, listen, the amount of good that I was able to find simply isn't significant enough to either outweigh or even counterbalance all the bad. or to lend a considerable amount of support to the notion that she actually does feel sorry for spreading lies and misinformation, despite that being the main purpose of her channel, that she criticizes the left because she wants it to improve, without ever giving any constructive criticisms, that she is interested in challenging her views, even though she doesn't even try to hide her smug contempt for all opposing viewpoints, and boastfully parades her aversion to treating them as anything more than lol cow mill. Is this her fake ID or something? That she has, somehow, avoided learning anything about the topics she talks about on her channel in the years she's been making videos, and that it hasn't occurred to her once that learning about them might be a good idea, that June taking and defending almost every alt-right position and managing to stay relatively unscathed by that is just one big coincidence, despite June holding alt-right views, being friends with alt-righters and getting her information from alt-right sources, that whenever she conveniently forgets about the size of her channel and the impact her videos make, she actually is not aware of what she's doing. The thing about empathy, it is difficult to have it for someone who revels in and benefits from making other people's lives more miserable for reasons that don't hold up to even cursory scrutiny, by making videos that are nothing but paltry white noise that infects and muddles conversations that, quite frankly, I don't think June has any business participating in, despite her having such impressive qualifications as 3 years ago she happened to luck out, blew up, amassed a bubble of enablers around her, and is unscrupulous enough to exploit people who want a moderately attractive female to tell them that there's nothing wrong with them, that they don't need to change or listen to people who say otherwise, that they are already good. No. It's the other. They are the real problem. Have I mentioned she's a gamergator? As in a supporter of what is transparently, factually, and undeniably a misogynistic harassment campaign? I haven't, have I? Not once. She's a gamergator.
Hey guys, this is Zoe. Fuck. And this is for all the trolls and the haters on Twitter and Tumblr. You can suck my paintballs.
I am not a whore. 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 But I like to do it.
I have spent several months in person hours, probably a couple weeks cumulatively, of my finite life making this video, and you've just wasted 2 hours of your finite life watching it. Why? Well, a woman decided a few years ago that she had something to say to the world, and sadly there is a lot of people in this world who wants to hear what she's got to say, while eventually, inevitably, they will be viewed the same way as every other group that has ever tried to stop progress. That is not a very comforting thought for the disenfranchised and the downtrodden of today, because at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that June and her relatively small and insignificant YouTube cult are just one symptom of a whole host of underlying systemic problems. I wish there was more that I personally could do. I wish I knew the answers. But what I do know is that I no longer can, nor want, to hide in the safety of selfish passivity, blithe compliance, and, yes, apathetic ignorance. So subscribe to my channel to be subscribed to my channel, and support me on Patreon to be supporting me on Patreon. And I don't know, I feel like I should end this on like a positive, a bit profound maybe notes. Let me think. Oh, right. I've got it. We are more than just our flesh layer, and if we could all just shed ourselves of our skin suits, we would all be much happier.
But we can't do that. So let's work on accepting it and becoming less concerned with each other's skin.
Exactly! God, I've been saying this for years! We should just tear our skin off and all be skeletons. That way, we can all be equal.